When Jasleen Carter walked out of Cameron Hawthorne's life 2 years ago, she took with her a secret that would shatter his perfect world. Not one, but 3 identical sons he never knew existed. Their chance reunion in an upscale Atlanta restaurant unleashes a tidal wave of emotions as Cameron comes face to face with the family he never fought for and the woman whose heart he carelessly broke. Between Jasleen's fierce determination to protect her boys and Cameron's desperate attempts to become the father they deserve lies a web of betrayal, jealousy, and unspoken truths that threatens everything they've built. Will the triplets' innocent questions about why Daddy didn't want them finally break down the walls between these wounded souls, or will the arrival of Uncle Ray, the man who stood by Jasleen when Cameron didn't, turn this family reunion into a battlefield? Subscribe right now and drop a comment telling me if you think a man deserves a second chance at fatherhood after choosing his ambition over his family, because this story of lost hearts and found family is about to take you on an emotional roller coaster you won't believe. The rain pounded against the windows of Le Jardin, one of Atlanta's most expensive restaurants. Inside, soft lighting and the gentle melody of a piano created a warm atmosphere despite the storm. Outside, Jasleen Carter adjusted the collar of her simple, black dress as she watched her 3 6-year-old boys coloring on the kids' menus. They were identical triplets, each with the same caramel-colored skin and dark curly hair. But to Jasleen they couldn't be more different. "Isaiah, honey, don't color on the table," she said, gently guiding her son's crayon back to the paper. "But Mom, I'm making the sky bigger," Isaiah protested, his large brown eyes looking up at her. "I know, baby. But we have to respect other people's things," she replied with a patient smile. Next to Isaiah, Malachi was carefully staying within the lines of his dinosaur picture, his face screwed up in concentration. On Jasleen's other side, Noah had already finished his coloring and was now folding the menu into an airplane. "Are we really having a fancy dinner because we're celebrating?" Noah asked, his voice rising with excitement. Jasleen nodded. "Yes, we are. 2 years in our new house deserves a special dinner." 2 years. That's how long it had been since she'd walked away from Cameron Hawthorne. 2 years of building a new life, of late nights working on design projects after putting the boys to bed, of birthday parties and flu seasons managed alone. 2 years of peace. "Can I have chocolate cake?" Malachi asked, looking up from his careful coloring. "We'll see," Jasleen smiled, reaching out to tuck a stray curl behind his ear. "Let's eat dinner first." The waiter approached with their appetizers, chicken fingers for the boys and a small salad for Jasleen. Money was tight, but tonight was special. 2 years of survival deserved a celebration. "Miss Carter, would you like to order a bottle of wine?" the waiter asked. "Just water for me, thank you," she replied. She couldn't afford to let her guard down, not even for one evening. As the waiter walked away, the front door of the restaurant opened. Jasleen didn't look up until she heard a familiar laugh, deep, confident, the kind that commanded attention without trying. Her heart stopped. Cameron Hawthorne stood at the entrance, shaking raindrops from his expensive coat. He looked exactly as she remembered, tall, broad-shouldered, with skin the color of burnished copper and a smile that could charm anyone. He was with 2 other men in business suits, probably closing another $1 million deal. Jasleen instinctively reached for her purse. They needed to leave. "Now, boys, change your plans. We need to—" Jasleen. Too late. Cameron had seen her. He stood frozen in the middle of the restaurant, his eyes wide with disbelief. Then, as if pulled by an invisible force, he walked toward their table. "Jasleen," he repeated, softer this time. She straightened her back and met his gaze. "Cameron." The boys looked up from their coloring, suddenly quiet as they stared at the stranger. But something in their eyes, recognition perhaps, made Cameron's breath catch. His gaze moved from Isaiah to Malachi to Noah, taking in their identical faces, the shape of their noses, the dimples in their cheeks when they frowned in confusion. His features staring back at him in triplicate. Are they mine?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. Jasleen felt 6 years of pain and 2 years of hard-won peace collide in her chest. She looked him straight in the eyes, hurt and fury dancing in her gaze, and replied, "I gave you a chance to choose family. You chose yourself." Cameron's business associates stood awkwardly nearby, unsure what to do. One of them cleared his throat. "Cameron, we should head to our table. But Cameron didn't move. He couldn't take his eyes off the boys. "How old are they?" he asked. "They're 6, Jasleen answered stiffly. 6, he repeated, doing the math in his head. "Right after we—" "Mum, who is this man?" Noah asked, his little airplane forgotten. Jasleen hesitated. This moment, the moment she'd rehearsed in her mind countless times, was finally here, and she had no idea what to say. I'm an old friend of your mom's," Cameron said, kneeling down to the boy's level. "My name is Cameron. You have the same eyes as us," Malachi observed quietly. Cameron's face paled. "Yes, I guess I do." "Cameron," one of his associates insisted, "we have a meeting." "Cancel it," Cameron said, not looking away from the boys. "Cancel everything." Jasleen stood up. "Boys, please go with the nice waiter to wash your hands before dinner." She nodded at the waiter, who understood immediately and led the curious triplets toward the restrooms. Once they were out of earshot, Jasleen turned to Cameron, her voice low and steady despite the trembling in her hands. "You don't get to walk back into our lives after 2 years of silence. You don't get to disrupt everything we've built." "I didn't know," Cameron said, his voice breaking. "Jasleen, I swear I didn't know about them." "Would it have mattered?" she asked bitterly. "You made it pretty clear what your priorities were." Cameron's mind raced back to their last days together. The fights about his long work hours, the missed anniversary dinner, the lipstick on his collar that he swore meant nothing, and then the final betrayal, the prenup she'd discovered, designed to protect every penny of his growing fortune while leaving her with nothing. "You disappeared," he said. "No note, no call. You just vanished. What was I supposed to do, Cameron? Beg you to love me? To choose your family over your ambition? I found out I was pregnant a week after I found out about your affair. And that prenup," she shook her head. "I wanted nothing from you. Still don't." The boys returned, their hands still damp from washing. They slid back into the booth, looking curiously between their mother and the strange man. "We should go," Jasleen said, reaching for her purse again. "Boys, we'll get pizza on the way home. But, Mom, you promised a special dinner," Isaiah protested. "I know, baby, but plans change." "We'll make it special at home." "Please," Cameron said suddenly. "Don't leave. At least finish your meal." He reached into his pocket for his wallet. "Let me pay for—" "We don't need your money," Jasleen cut him off sharply. "Mom, I'm hungry," Malachi whined. Jasleen looked at her sons' disappointed faces. They'd been looking forward to this dinner all week. With a sigh, she sat back down. "Fine, we'll stay and eat. But then we're leaving, and you're going back to your meeting." Cameron nodded, but his eyes never left the boys. "What are their names?" he asked softly. Jasleen hesitated, then answered, "Isaiah, Malachi, and Noah." "Biblical names," Cameron noted. "Strong names." "Yes," Jasleen replied, "because I needed strength when I chose them." Cameron's associates had retreated to their own table, sensing this was not a business matter. Cameron remained standing awkwardly beside the booth. Can I join you? Just for a few minutes?" Jasleen wanted to say no. Every instinct told her to protect the life she'd carefully built. But the boys were watching, curious, and someday they would ask questions she'd have to answer. 5 minutes, she conceded. "That's all." Cameron slid into the booth opposite Jasleen. The boys studied him with open curiosity. "Do you like dinosaurs?" Malachi asked suddenly, pushing his colored picture toward Cameron. A smile broke across Cameron's face. "I love dinosaurs." "Is that a T-Rex you've drawn?" Malachi nodded proudly. "It's the king of all dinosaurs." "Not true," Noah interrupted. "The Spinosaurus was bigger." "Was not." "Was too." "Boys," Jasleen warned gently. Cameron watched their exchange with wonder. These were his sons, his blood, his features looking back at him through innocent eyes that had no idea who he really was or what he had done. "So," Isaiah said, studying Cameron's expensive watch, "are you really Mom's friend?" Cameron glanced at Jasleen, uncertain how to answer. "We knew each other a long time ago," Jasleen explained carefully. "Before we were born?" Noah asked. "Yes," Jasleen said. "Before you were born." The waiter returned with their main courses, chicken nuggets and fries for the boys, pasta for Jasleen. Cameron ordered nothing, too caught up in the moment to think about food. "Where do you live?" Cameron asked, trying to sound casual. "That's not relevant," Jasleen replied firmly. "We live in a blue house with a big tree in the yard," Isaiah announced proudly. And I have the biggest room because I'm the oldest. By 2 minutes, Malachi grumbled. Still oldest, Isaiah grinned. Cameron's heart ached. He had missed 6 years of their lives. First words, first steps, first days of school. All gone moments he could never get back. Do you have kids? Noah asked Cameron innocently. The question hung in the air like a thundercloud. No, Cameron finally answered. No, I don't. Jasleen checked her watch. Your 5 minutes are up, Cameron. Please, Jasleen. We need to talk about this. No, we don't. You made your choice 2 years ago, actually even before that. These boys have never had a father, and they've done just fine. Cameron's phone buzzed in his pocket. Without looking at it, he silenced it. They're my sons too, Jasleen. Biologically, yes. But in every way that matters. She shook her head. You haven't earned that title. The boys had gone quiet, sensing the tension between the adults. Isaiah pushed his fries around his plate, while Malachi and Noah exchanged concerned glances. Mom, can we have dessert? Malachi asked, trying to change the subject. Jasleen forced a smile. Of course, baby. Whatever you want. Cameron reached across the table, not quite touching Jasleen's hand. Give me a chance, please. Just one chance to make this right. Before Jasleen could answer, her phone rang. She glanced at the screen. I need to take this. Hey, it's work. She stood up. Boys, stay here and finish your dinner. I'll be right back. As she walked toward the restaurant entrance for better reception, Cameron found himself alone with his sons. The boys stared at him curiously. So, he began awkwardly, what grade are you in? First, they answered in unison. Do you like school? Noah shrugged. It's okay. I like music class best. I like gym, Isaiah added. I like art, Malachi said quietly. Cameron nodded, drinking in every detail. I liked art too when I was your age. Really? Malachi's face lit up. Really? I used to draw all the time. Mom says I'm good at drawing. She keeps all my pictures on the fridge. Cameron swallowed hard. Jasleen had always been that way, seeing the best in people, nurturing their talents. It was one of the many things he'd loved about her. From across the restaurant, Jasleen watched the interaction with mixed emotions. Part of her wanted to rush back and end it. Another part, a part she'd kept buried for 2 years, recognized the boys' need to know where they came from. Her phone call completed, she walked back to the table. Cameron looked up at her with pleading eyes. Jasleen, please. We need to talk properly. She sat down, careful to keep her voice steady. There's nothing to talk about, Cameron. They're my sons. They're my sons, she corrected. I've raised them alone for 6 years. Because you didn't tell me. His voice rose slightly, then he caught himself. I'm sorry. I would have been there if I'd known. Jasleen laughed bitterly. Really? You who worked 80-hour weeks? Who missed our anniversary dinner for a business meeting? Who couldn't even stay faithful for 2 years of marriage? She leaned forward, keeping her voice low so the boys wouldn't hear. You would have chosen us over your precious company. The truth hit Cameron like a physical blow. Would he have? 2 years ago, with his ambition burning bright and his ego even brighter, would he have truly chosen fatherhood over empire building? I've changed, he said finally. People don't change, Cameron. They just show you who they really are eventually. The waiter brought dessert, chocolate cake for the boys who dug in eagerly, oblivious to the tension. Mom, this is the best cake ever. Isaiah exclaimed, chocolate already smeared around his mouth. Jasleen smiled, grateful for the interruption. I'm glad you like it, baby. Cameron watched them, these beautiful boys who shared his blood but not his name. In that moment, he made a decision. Jasleen, I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not even asking for a second chance, not with you anyway. But those boys, his voice broke. They deserve to know their father. They have everything they need, Jasleen insisted. Do they? Cameron challenged. Isaiah has your smile. Malachi has your thoughtfulness. Noah has your love of music. But they have my eyes, my dimples, my laugh. He leaned forward. Don't they ever ask about me? A shadow crossed Jasleen's face. Of course they asked. Constantly, lately. Who is our daddy? Why don't we have one? Did he die? Did he not want us? That's not your concern, she said finally. Cameron reached into his jacket and pulled out a business card, sliding it across the table. My number hasn't changed. When you're ready to talk, really talk, call me. He stood up, dropping several $100 bills on the table. For dessert, he said, seeing Jasleen's protest forming. And whatever else they want. He looked at the boys one more time, memorizing their faces. "It was nice meeting you, Isaiah, Malachi. And Noah. Maybe we'll see each other again sometime." The boys nodded, mouths full of chocolate cake. With a final glance at Jasleen, Cameron walked away, his heart heavier than it had ever been after he left. Jasleen gathered the money he'd left and tucked it into her purse. She'd donate it to the boys' school fund tomorrow. She didn't need his money. She didn't need him. But as she watched her sons finishing their dessert, each with Cameron's dimple appearing when they smiled, she wondered if they might need him and if she was wrong to keep them apart. "Mom, was that really just your friend?" Noah asked, always the most perceptive of the three. Jasleen hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, baby, just an old friend. He looks like us," Malachi observed. "A lot of people look similar, sweetheart. It doesn't mean anything." But the boys exchanged glances, a silent communication that only identical triplets could share. They knew there was more to the story. They always knew when their mother wasn't telling the whole truth. Outside the restaurant, Cameron sat in his luxury car, rain beating against the windows. He pulled out his phone and cancelled his meetings for the next week. Then he opened his browser and typed, "How to reconnect with your children." He had made the biggest mistake of his life 2 years ago. But now he had a chance to make it right. And this time he wouldn't choose himself. Jasleen's phone buzzed with a text as they drove home through the rainy streets. Unknown number, but she knew who it was. "They deserve to know me, and I deserve a chance to know them. This isn't over." She deleted the message, but the words stayed with her as she tucked her boys into bed that night, as she kissed each forehead and turned out the light. This wasn't over. It was just beginning. And for the first time in 2 years, Jasleen Carter was afraid of what tomorrow might bring. 1 week had passed since the restaurant encounter. Jasleen sat at her kitchen table, nursing a cup of coffee while her mother Eleanor fixed breakfast for the boys. "Grandma, can I have extra syrup?" Isaiah called from the table where the triplets were waiting for their pancakes. "Just a little extra," Eleanor replied with a wink. At 62, Eleanor Carter still moved with the energy of a much younger woman. Her salt and pepper hair was pulled back in a neat bun, and her sharp eyes missed nothing. "You haven't been sleeping," Eleanor observed, keeping her voice low as she flipped pancakes. "Is it work?" Jasleen sighed. "No, Mom, it's him." Eleanor's spatula paused mid-air. "He's contacted you again?" "Every day this week. Texts, calls, emails. He even sent a package of art supplies for Malachi." Eleanor's lips pressed into a thin line. "I never trusted that man. Even when you first brought him home with his fancy car and big promises. Too smooth. Too rehearsed? Mom, please, not in front of the boys," Jasleen whispered, glancing toward the triplets who were busy arguing about which superhero was strongest. "Have you told them?" Eleanor asked. "No, and I don't plan to." Eleanor placed a stack of pancakes on a serving plate. "You'll have to tell them something. They're smart boys. They notice things." "I know," Jasleen admitted. "Isaiah asked me yesterday why that man at the restaurant had the same eyes as them." "And what did you say?" "So I told him some people just look alike. That it's a coincidence." Eleanor carried the pancakes to the table. "Here you go, my handsome boys. Eat up before school." As the triplets dug into their breakfast, Eleanor returned to the kitchen counter where Jasleen sat. "Cameron doesn't deserve to be in their lives," Eleanor said firmly. "Not after what he did to you. The cheating, the prenup, walking away when you needed him most. He claims he didn't know I was pregnant. And if he had known, would it have changed anything?" Eleanor shook her head. "Men like that don't change, Jasleen. They just get better at hiding who they really are." Jasleen's phone buzzed with a text message. She glanced at it and frowned. "Him again?" Eleanor asked. Jasleen nodded, reading the message. "I'm at their school. Just want to see them. Please don't be angry." "What?" Eleanor exclaimed, reading over Jasleen's shoulder. "The nerve of that man." "Mom, I have to go," Jasleen said, grabbing her purse. "Can you take the boys to school?" "Of course." "But what are you going to do?" "Stop him before he causes a scene." Jasleen kissed each of her sons goodbye, then hurried to her modest sedan parked in the driveway. The drive to Westlake Elementary School took only 10 minutes, but Jasleen's mind raced the entire way. How dare he show up at their school? What was he planning to do? Just walk up and announce he was their father? The thought made her stomach churn. She pulled into the school parking lot and immediately spotted Cameron's sleek black Mercedes near the entrance. He was leaning against it, dressed casually in jeans and a button-down shirt. A far cry from the business suits she remembered. She parked and marched toward him, anger building with each step. "What do you think you're doing?" she demanded as she approached. Cameron straightened, surprised to see her. "Jasleen, No, you don't get to just show up at my children's school. That's not how this works." "I wasn't going to approach them," he said quickly. I wanted to see where they go to school. See a little piece of their lives. By stalking them, do you know how inappropriate that is?" Cameron ran a hand over his face. "I know it seems crazy, but I can't stop thinking about them, Jasleen. They're my sons. Biologically, yes, but you haven't earned the right to call yourself their father." A silver SUV pulled into the parking lot, and Eleanor emerged with the triplets in tow. She spotted Jasleen and Cameron and frowned, holding the boys closer. "Is that him?" Noah asked loudly, pointing at Cameron. "Yes, it's the man from the restaurant," Malachi confirmed. Eleanor guided the boys toward the school entrance, away from Cameron, but Isaiah broke free and ran toward his mother. "Mom, did you see my project?" "It's hanging in the hallway," Isaiah called as he approached, then stopped short when he saw Cameron up close. Cameron knelt down to the boy's level. "Hi, Isaiah. It's nice to see you again." Isaiah looked from Cameron to his mother, uncertainty in his eyes. "How do you know my name?" "Your mom told me at the restaurant, remember? You're Isaiah, and your brothers are Malachi and Noah." Isaiah nodded slowly. "Why are you at our school?" Before Cameron could answer, Jasleen stepped between them. "He was just leaving, sweetie. Grandma's waiting to take you inside." Isaiah hesitated, then asked the question Jasleen had been dreading. "Are you my dad?" The simple question hung in the air like a thunderclap. Cameron's eyes filled with tears, and he looked to Jasleen, silently asking permission to answer. Jasleen's heart pounded. This wasn't how she wanted this conversation to happen. Not in a parking lot, not without preparation. "Isaiah, please go with Grandma. We'll talk about this at home. But now, Isaiah." The boy reluctantly returned to his grandmother, who threw a final glare in Cameron's direction before leading all three boys into the school building. "You had no right to come here," Jasleen said once the boys were out of earshot. "They're asking questions, Jasleen. They're curious. We can't hide the truth forever. We? There is no we, Cameron. I've raised these boys alone for 6 years. I've handled every fever, every nightmare, every skinned knee." "Where were you?" "You know where I was," Cameron said quietly. "Building a company. Thinking I had all the time in the world to start a family later." He shook his head. "I made the biggest mistake of my life when I let you walk away." "You didn't let me walk away. You pushed me away with every late night at the office, every missed dinner, every lie." Jasleen's voice cracked. "And then I found that prenup. The one that protected every penny of your precious fortune, but left me with nothing after 2 years of marriage. I was young and stupid," Cameron admitted. "Terrified of losing everything I'd worked for. But I've changed, Jasleen, these past 2 years without you. They've shown me what really matters. I've heard this speech before, Cameron. Your promises mean nothing to me now." She turned to leave, but Cameron gently caught her arm. "I'm not asking for another chance with you," he said. "I know I destroyed that bridge, but those boys deserve to know their father. And I deserve a chance to know my sons." Jasleen pulled her arm away. "You don't deserve anything. And if you come to their school again, I'll file a restraining order." As she walked back to her car, Cameron called after her, "I'm not giving up, Jasleen. Not this time." That evening, Jasleen sat on the couch in her living room, a glass of wine in hand as she scrolled through photos on her phone. Pictures of the boys as newborns, their first smiles, first steps. Moments Cameron had missed. A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. She opened it to find Raymond Johnson, Uncle Ray to the boys, standing on her porch with a toolbox in hand. "Ray, what are you doing here?" she asked, surprised but pleased to see him. Ray, a tall black man with kind eyes and gentle hands, smiled warmly. "You mentioned that kitchen faucet was still leaking. Thought I'd stop by and fix it." Jasleen stepped aside to let him in. "You're a lifesaver. The boys are already in bed, though. They'll be disappointed they missed you. I'll see them this weekend at the park, right?" Ray set his toolbox on the kitchen counter and immediately went to work examining the faucet. "Of course. They're looking forward to it." Ray had been a constant in their lives for almost 2 years now. He'd met Jasleen when she was 7 months pregnant and struggling to assemble a crib for the boys. As her neighbor at the time, he'd heard her frustration through the apartment walls and offered to help. Since then, he'd become a trusted friend and a father figure to the triplets. "You seem distracted," Ray observed as he worked on the faucet. "Everything okay?" Jasleen sighed. "Cameron found us." Ray's hands stilled. "The boy's father? How? Pure chance. We ran into him at Le Jardin last week." She rubbed her temples. "And now he's showing up at their school, sending gifts, demanding to be part of their lives. What are you going to do?" "I don't know. Part of me wants to pack up and disappear again. Another part," she trailed off, "thinks the boys deserve to know their father," Ray finished for her. Jasleen nodded reluctantly. "Isaiah asked Cameron directly if he was their dad. Right in the school parking lot this morning. And what did he say?" "Nothing," I intervened. "But the boys aren't stupid. They see the resemblance." Ray turned off the water valve and started disassembling the faucet. "Have you considered that maybe knowing their father might be good for them, even if it's just to understand where they come from?" "Whose side are you on?" Jasleen asked, her voice rising slightly. "Yours, always yours, Jazz," Ray said gently. "But I also care about those boys, and growing up wondering about your dad. It's not easy. I should know." Jasleen softened. Ray had shared his own story of growing up without a father, of the questions that had never been answered, the void that had never been filled. "Cameron hurt me. Ray, badly. I don't trust him not to hurt the boys too." "People can change," Ray suggested. "That's what he says. But I've heard it all before." Ray finished fixing the faucet and tested it. The leak was gone. "Good as new," he announced, then turned to face Jasleen fully. "Look, I'm not saying you should let him waltz back into your lives like nothing happened. But maybe there's a middle ground. Supervised visits, limited contact. Something that protects the boys but also gives them a chance to know where they come from." Jasleen considered his words. Ray had never steered her wrong before. "I'll think about it," she promised. Ray smiled and squeezed her hand briefly before packing up his tools. "That's all anyone can ask. And remember, whatever you decide, I'm here for you. For all of you." After Ray left, Jasleen checked on the boys one last time before bed. They were sleeping peacefully, their identical faces relaxed in slumber. As she looked at them, she couldn't help but see Cameron in each of their features. His nose, his dimples, his strong jawline. Her phone buzzed with a text. Unknown number, but she knew who it was. "I've scheduled a paternity test for Friday. Just a formality. I know they're mine. Please don't fight me on this." Jasleen deleted the message, her hands shaking. A paternity test would be the first legal step toward Cameron claiming his rights as their father. She couldn't let that happen. Not yet. Not until she was sure he wouldn't hurt them like he'd hurt her. Across town in his luxury penthouse apartment, Cameron sat at his desk, staring at family law websites on his computer screen. His sister Vanessa paced behind him. "You're seriously going to fight her for custody?" Vanessa asked, disbelief in her voice. "Not full custody," Cameron clarified. "Just some rights. The right to know them, to be part of their lives." Vanessa sat on the edge of the desk. "Cam, think about this. You've only just found out about them. Maybe take some time. Get to know Jasleen's situation before you go charging in with lawyers." Cameron leaned back in his chair, studying his sister's face. "You don't seem surprised. About the boys, I mean." Vanessa looked away. I'm not. What does that mean?" She sighed heavily. "It means I knew, Cam. I knew Jasleen was pregnant when she left." Cameron stood up so quickly his chair crashed to the floor. "You what?" "She called me about a month after she disappeared. Said she needed someone to know just in case something happened to her during the pregnancy." "And you didn't think to tell me?" Cameron's voice rose with each word. "My own sister kept my children from me for 6 years. She made me promise," Vanessa said defensively. "And frankly, you weren't in a good place then. Cam, you were working 80-hour weeks, dating a new model every month, drowning yourself in success to avoid dealing with losing Jasleen. That wasn't your decision to make." Cameron shouted. "No, it was Jasleen's, and I respected it." Vanessa stood her ground. "She was alone and pregnant with triplets, Cam. Triplets. Do you have any idea how high risk that is? She needed support, not stress. And you were nothing but stress back then." Cameron ran his hands through his hair, trying to process this betrayal. "Did you ever see them?" "The boys?" Vanessa nodded. Once, when they were about 6 months old, I visited them in that tiny apartment Jasleen was renting. They were beautiful, Cam, perfect little copies of you, and you still didn't tell me. By then, Jasleen had built a life without you. She was managing somehow, working from home, taking care of the babies. She seemed peaceful, in a way she never had been with you. Cameron turned away, staring out at the Atlanta skyline through his floor-to-ceiling windows. I've missed so much. Yes, you have, Vanessa agreed, her voice softening. But it's not too late to be part of their future. Jasleen won't let me near them. Can you blame her? The last time she saw you, you were a workaholic who cheated on her and protected his money with an ironclad prenup. Vanessa approached her brother and placed a hand on his shoulder. If you want to be in those boys' lives, you need to prove you're not that man anymore. How? Cameron asked, turning to face his sister. How do I prove something like that? You show up. Not just once, not just when it's convenient. You show up consistently, respectfully on Jasleen's terms. Vanessa paused. And maybe you start by withdrawing that paternity test threat. That's no way to begin rebuilding trust. Cameron considered her words. You're right, he admitted finally. I need to do this differently. He pulled out his phone and sent a new text to Jasleen. I'm sorry about the paternity test message. No legal action. Just want a chance to know them, on your terms. Please call me when you're ready to talk. The next morning, Jasleen sat at her kitchen table with the triplets, who were unusually quiet as they ate their cereal. Is something wrong with your breakfast? She asked. The boys exchanged glances, that silent communication that sometimes unnerved her. Mom, Malachi finally spoke up, is that man our dad? Jasleen froze. She'd known this question was coming, but she still wasn't prepared. Why do you ask that, sweetie? Isaiah said he asked him if he was our dad, Noah explained. And you didn't say no. And he has the same eyes as us, Malachi added. And the same nose. And the same laugh, Isaiah finished. We heard him laugh at the restaurant. It sounds like mine. Jasleen took a deep breath. These boys, her precious boys, deserve the truth. Or at least part of it. Yes, she said finally. Cameron is your biological father. The boy's eyes widened simultaneously. I knew it, Isaiah exclaimed. Why doesn't he live with us? Noah asked. Tommy's dad lives with him, and Zach's dad picks him up from school sometimes, Malachi added. Jasleen chose her words carefully. Sometimes mommies and daddies don't stay together. Your father and I, we separated before you were born. Why? The question came from all three at once. How could she explain the complexity of adult relationships to 6-year-olds? How could she tell them that their father had chosen his career and other women over their mother? That he hadn't known about them, because she'd kept them a secret? We wanted different things, she said simply. Didn't he want us? Malachi's voice was small and it broke Jasleen's heart. He didn't know about you, she admitted. I didn't tell him. The boys looked confused. Why not? Noah asked. Because Jasleen struggled to find the right words. Because sometimes grown-ups make mistakes. I made a mistake by not telling him about you. Is that why he came to our school? Isaiah asked. Because he wants to know us now? Jasleen nodded. Yes, I think so. Can we know him too? Malachi asked hopefully. The question hung in the air as Jasleen considered her answer. She thought of Ray's advice, of the middle ground he'd suggested. Perhaps it was time. Would you like to? She asked carefully. All three boys nodded enthusiastically. Okay, she said finally. We'll take it slow. Maybe start with a short visit this weekend, but I'll be there the whole time. The boys' faces lit up with excitement. They bombarded her with questions. Where would they meet? What would they do? Could they show him their toys? As Jasleen answered their questions, her phone buzzed with Cameron's apologetic text. She read it twice, surprised by the change in tone. Maybe, just maybe, there was hope that Cameron had changed. For the boys' sake, she hoped so. But as she got the triplets ready for school, a nagging fear remained. Cameron had hurt her once. What would stop him from hurting the boys too? Did you tell him we want to see him? Noah asked as she zipped up his jacket. Not yet. But I will, Jasleen promised. Later that day, after dropping the boys at school, she finally replied to Cameron's message. Saturday, 10 a.m., Piedmont Park, 1 hour. I'll be there the entire time. His response came seconds later. Thank you. I won't let them down. Or you. Jasleen stared at those words, wanting desperately to believe them. For 6 years she'd been mother and father to her sons. She'd protected them, provided for them, loved them enough for 2 parents. Now she was opening the door to Cameron, the man who had broken her heart and shattered her trust. Was she making a mistake? Only time would tell. But as she drove to her first client meeting of the day, Jasleen made a silent promise to her boys. No matter what happened with Cameron, she would protect them. Always, even if it meant protecting them from their own father. Saturday morning arrived with clear skies and warm sunshine, perfect park weather. Jasleen helped the triplets get dressed, answering their endless questions about the upcoming meeting with their father. "Will he bring us presents?" Isaiah asked as Jasleen tied his shoes. "Isaiah, it's not about presents," she reminded him gently. "But maybe he will," Noah suggested hopefully. Malachi, always the quietest of the 3, sat on his bed clutching his favorite sketchbook. "Do you think he'll like my drawings?" Jasleen smiled and sat beside him. "I'm sure he will, sweetie." Her phone rang, her mother calling for the 3rd time that morning. "Mom, we're fine," Jasleen said immediately upon answering. "I still think this is a mistake." Eleanor's voice crackled through the speaker. "That man doesn't deserve to be in their lives after what he did to you." "This isn't about me," Jasleen replied, stepping into the hallway so the boys wouldn't hear. "It's about what's best for the triplets. They need to know where they come from. And what happens when he disappoints them? When he makes promises he can't keep? Who'll be there to pick up the pieces?" "I will," Jasleen said firmly. "Just like I've always been," Eleanor sighed. "At least let me come with you." "No, Mom, I need to handle this myself." Jasleen glanced at her watch. "I have to go." "We're meeting Cameron in 30 minutes. Call me as soon as it's over," Eleanor insisted before hanging up. Jasleen returned to the boys' bedroom to find them huddled together. Whispering excitedly, "What are you 3 plotting?" she asked, smiling despite her nervousness. "We made a list of questions for our dad," Isaiah announced proudly, holding up a crumpled piece of paper. Jasleen's heart squeezed at the word dad, a title Cameron hadn't yet earned, in her opinion. But she couldn't bring herself to correct them. "Not today. That's a good idea," she said instead. "Now let's get going or we'll be late." Piedmont Park was bustling with weekend visitors, joggers, dog walkers, families enjoying the beautiful weather. Jasleen held Malachi in Noah's hands, while Isaiah walked slightly ahead, scanning the crowd eagerly. "Is that him?" he asked every few minutes, pointing at random men. "Not yet, sweetie," Jasleen replied, her own eyes searching the designated meeting spot near the lake. Then she saw him. Cameron was standing by the water, dressed casually in jeans and a blue button-down shirt that matched his eyes, the same eyes the boys had inherited. He held 3 small gift bags and looked more nervous than she'd ever seen him. "There he is," she said quietly to the boys. Isaiah spotted Cameron and broke into a run before Jasleen could stop him. "Isaiah, wait!" she called, but the boy was already racing toward his father. Cameron looked up just as Isaiah reached him, his face breaking into a smile that mirrored his son's. "Hey there," he said, kneeling down to Isaiah's level. "I'm Isaiah," the boy announced breathlessly. "I'm 6 years old and I'm the oldest by 2 minutes, and I can run faster than my brothers." Cameron laughed, that deep, warm laugh that the boys had recognized at the restaurant. "It's nice to officially meet you, Isaiah. I'm Cameron." By then, Jasleen had caught up with Noah and Malachi in tow. The 2 younger triplets hung back slightly, studying Cameron with curious eyes. "You brought presents," Isaiah observed, pointing at the gift bags. Cameron glanced at Jasleen, silently asking permission. She nodded slightly. "I did," he confirmed, holding up the bags. "One for each of you." Malachi stepped forward hesitantly. "I'm Malachi." "And I'm Noah," the 3rd brother added, moving closer. Cameron smiled at them. "I know. I've been looking forward to meeting you properly." He handed each boy a gift bag. "These are just small things I thought you might like." The boys eagerly opened their gifts. Isaiah received a model race car kit. Noah got a beginner's electronic keyboard, and Malachi unwrapped a professional art set with colored pencils, pastels, and a sketchbook. "How did you know?" Malachi asked in wonder, running his fingers over the art supplies. Cameron glanced at Jasleen before answering. "Your mom mentioned you like drawing. I used to draw a lot when I was your age, too." "Thank you," Malachi said quietly, a small smile lighting up his face. Can you show me how to build the car? Isaiah asked, already tearing into the package. Maybe we should sit down first, Jasleen suggested, gesturing toward a nearby picnic table. As they walked, Cameron fell into step beside her. Thank you for this, he said softly. It means more than you know. Jasleen nodded but kept her distance. This is for them, not for us. At the picnic table, Cameron helped the boys with their gifts. He showed Isaiah how to read the instructions for the model car, played a simple tune on Noah's keyboard, and discussed different drawing techniques with Malachi. Watching them interact, Jasleen felt a confusing mix of emotions. There was undeniable joy in seeing her son's happiness, but also fear of what Cameron's presence in their lives might mean in the long run. Mum said you didn't know about us, Noah said suddenly, his perceptive gaze fixed on Cameron. Cameron glanced at Jasleen before answering carefully. That's right. I didn't know your mom was going to have you. Were you mad when you found out? Malachi asked. Not mad, Cameron replied honestly. Surprised. And sad that I missed so much time with you. Where do you live? Isaiah asked, pulling out the list of questions they'd prepared. I have an apartment downtown. It has a view of the whole city. Is it big? Noah asked. Cameron nodded. Too big, actually. For just one person. We live in a blue house, Malachi offered, with a tree in the yard that's good for climbing. That sounds nice, Cameron said, smiling. Much nicer than my place. The conversation flowed more easily than Jasleen had expected. The boys bombarded Cameron with questions from their list. What's your favorite food? Pizza with extra cheese. Do you have a dog? No, but he'd always wanted one. Can you swim? Yes, and he promised to teach them someday with their mother's permission. After about 45 minutes, Jasleen checked her watch. We should start wrapping up. We promised Uncle Ray we'd meet him for lunch. A shadow crossed Cameron's face at the mention of Uncle Ray, but he quickly masked it with a smile. Of course. I don't want to keep you. Can't we stay longer? Isaiah pleaded. I want to show Dad how fast I can run. Dad. The word hung in the air between Jasleen and Cameron. His eyes filled with emotion while hers narrowed slightly. Another 15 minutes, she conceded. Why don't you show him the playground? The boys cheered and jumped up from the table, eager to show Cameron their favorite park equipment. I'll race you to the swings. Isaiah challenged his brothers, taking off at full speed. Wait for me. Noah called, running after him. Malachi carefully placed his new art supplies in his bag before following at a more measured pace. They're amazing, Jasleen, Cameron said as they walked behind the boys. You've done an incredible job with them. I had to, she replied. I was all they had, I know. And I'm sorry for that. He hesitated. This Ray, is he someone special in your life? Jasleen stiffened. That's not your business. The boys mentioned Uncle Ray at the restaurant too. I just wondered. He's a friend. A good friend who's been there for us when we needed help. She met his gaze directly. Something you weren't. Cameron accepted the rebuke with a nod. I deserve that. But I'm here now and I want to be part of their lives. Regular visits, school events, birthdays, whatever you'll allow. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. This was just one meeting. They reached the playground where Isaiah and Noah were already climbing on the jungle gym. Malachi had found a bench and was opening his new sketchbook. I want to push on the swings. Isaiah shouted, jumping down and racing toward the swing set. Me too. Noah echoed, following his brother. Cameron looked to Jasleen for permission. She nodded and he jogged after the boys to help them on the swings. Jasleen sat beside Malachi, who was already sketching the scene before them, his brothers on the swings with Cameron pushing them higher. What do you think of him? She asked softly. Malachi considered the question with a seriousness beyond his years. He seems nice, and he likes art like me. Are you happy you met him? Malachi nodded. Yeah, but what, sweetie? Will he stay? Or will he go away again? The question pierced Jasleen's heart. I don't know, she answered honestly, but no matter what happens with Cameron, I'll always be here. You know that, right? Malachi nodded and returned to his drawing. Across the playground, Cameron was now helping Noah across the monkey bars while Isaiah waited impatiently for his turn. Jasleen's phone buzzed with a text from Ray. Lunch still on for 12:30? Made reservations at the pizza place the boys like. She quickly replied, yes, see you then. As she put her phone away, she realized she'd lost sight of Isaiah. Noah was still on the monkey bars with Cameron, But Isaiah was nowhere to be seen. Where's Isaiah? She asked Malachi, standing up to get a better view of the playground. Malachi looked up from his drawing. He was by the swings, but the swings were empty now. Jaslene's heart began to pound as she scanned the crowded playground. Isaiah? She called. Isaiah, where are you? Cameron heard the panic in her voice and quickly helped Noah down from the monkey bars. What's wrong? I can't see Isaiah, Jaslene said, her voice rising. He was just here and now he's gone. Cameron's face paled. I'll check the slide area. You look by the swings. They split up, each taking one of the remaining boys with them. Jaslene held Malachi's hand tightly as they searched the swing area, calling Isaiah's name. Her mind raced with horrible possibilities. Kidnapping, accidents, her son lost and afraid. Isaiah Carter. She called louder, drawing the attention of nearby parents. Has anyone seen a little boy? 6 years old, blue t-shirt, looks like these two? She gestured to Malachi. A woman with a toddler shook her head. Sorry, I haven't noticed. Jaslene's panic grew with each passing second. She pulled out her phone to call park security when she heard Cameron's voice. Jaslene, he called from near the water fountain. I found him! She rushed over to see Cameron kneeling beside Isaiah, who was happily accepting a balloon from a park vendor. Look what I got, Mom, Isaiah said, proudly holding up a blue balloon animal. The balloon man made it just for me. Relief flooded through Jaslene, quickly followed by anger. Isaiah Carter, don't you ever walk away like that again. Do you have any idea how worried I was? Isaiah's smile faded. I'm sorry, Mom, I just wanted a balloon. You have to tell a grown-up before you go anywhere, she insisted, pulling him into a tight hug despite her anger. Io scared me to death. I'm sorry, Isaiah repeated, his lower lip trembling. Cameron stood nearby, his face still pale from the scare. I should have been watching him more closely. It's my fault. It's not your fault, Jaslene said automatically, then realized she was defending the man she'd been determined to blame for everything for the past 6 years. Cameron checked his watch. Your hour is up. I should let you go to your lunch, the boys protested immediately. But we just found Isaiah, Noah complained. And I didn't show Dad my drawing yet, Malachi added. I'm sure we'll see each other again soon, Cameron assured them. Though he looked to Jaslene for confirmation, she hesitated, then made a decision that surprised even herself. Why don't you join us for lunch, Cameron? The boy's friend Ray is meeting us at Antonio's Pizza. Cameron's eyes widened slightly. Are you sure? The boys want you there, she said, as if that explained everything. And perhaps it did, because despite her lingering anger and distrust, she couldn't deny the joy on her sons' faces as they spent time with their father. Even the scare with Isaiah hadn't diminished their enthusiasm. I'd love to come, Cameron replied. Thank you. As they gathered their things and headed toward the park exit, Malachi slipped his small hand into Cameron's larger one. The simple gesture made Cameron's eyes fill with tears. Look at my drawing, Malachi said, opening his sketchbook with his free hand to reveal the picture he'd been working on, a rough but recognizable drawing of all 5 of them at the park. It's beautiful, Cameron said, his voice thick with emotion. You have real talent. Malachi beamed at the praise. Jaslene watched the interaction with mixed feelings. Part of her, the part that remembered the pain of Cameron's betrayal, wanted to pull Malachi away to protect him from inevitable disappointment. But another part, the part that saw her son's happiness, wondered if perhaps she'd been wrong to keep them apart for so long. Antonio's Pizza was busy with the Saturday lunch crowd when they arrived. Ray was already waiting at a corner booth, his friendly face breaking into a smile when he spotted them. The smile faltered slightly when he saw Cameron walking behind Jaslene with the boys. Ray, the triplets called in unison, rushing toward him. Ray hugged each boy in turn. Hey, guys! How was the park? It was awesome, Isaiah exclaimed. And look what our dad gave me. He proudly displayed his model car kit. Ray's eyes flickered to Jaslene, who gave a small nod. That's great, buddy, he said to Isaiah. Then he straightened and extended his hand to Cameron. You must be Cameron. I'm Raymond Johnson. The boys call me Uncle Ray. Cameron shook his hand firmly. Nice to meet you, Raymond. Thank you for being there for my family when I wasn't. The words my family hung in the air awkwardly. Let's sit down, Jaslene suggested quickly. I'm starving and I bet the boys are too. They squeezed into the booth, the triplets in the middle with Ray and Cameron on either end, and Jaslene pulled up a chair at the end of the table. The boys immediately began telling Ray about their morning with Cameron, while Jasleen studied the two men. They couldn't have been more different. Ray with his easy smile and casual confidence, dressed in a simple t-shirt and jeans. Cameron with his polished appearance and careful manners, even in casual clothes. Ray had been a constant, reliable presence for 2 years. Cameron was still largely a stranger, despite their shared past. "So Raymond," Cameron said during a lull in the boys' chatter, "how do you know Jasleen and the boys?" Ray glanced at Jasleen before answering. "We were neighbors when Jasleen first moved to Atlanta. I helped her assemble some furniture for the boys, and we've been friends ever since. Uncle Ray fixes everything," Noah explained. "He fixed our sink and built our treehouse and teaches us about cars." "He sounds very handy," Cameron remarked, a hint of something jealousy in his voice. "Ray's been a lifesaver," Jasleen added. "I don't know what we would have done without him these past 2 years." Cameron nodded, absorbing this information. "And what do you do for work, Raymond?" "I'm a high school shop teacher," Ray replied. "And I do handyman work on the side. He lets us use his tools sometimes," Isaiah piped up, "when he thinks we're ready." "With proper supervision, of course," Ray added quickly. Cameron smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. "Of course." The waitress arrived to take their order. A large pepperoni pizza and a small veggie pizza, plus sodas for the boys and waters for the adults. "So, Cameron," Ray said once the waitress left, "Jasleen mentioned you work in tech." "Yes, I founded Hawthorne Innovations about 8 years ago. We develop security software for businesses." "Sounds impressive," Ray said sincerely. "It keeps me busy," Cameron replied. "Too busy, as I've recently realized." His gaze met Jasleen's briefly, and she looked away. The conversation flowed more easily as the meal progressed. The boys dominated much of the talk, eager to share stories and ask questions of both men. Jasleen remained quieter, observing the dynamics at the table. "Can we get ice cream after?" Noah asked as they finished the pizza. "Please?" His brothers echoed. Jasleen hesitated. The day had already extended far beyond the hour she'd originally planned for Cameron's visit. "My treat," Cameron offered. "No. I'll get it," Ray said quickly. "Please." "I insist," Cameron countered. An awkward silence fell over the table. "How about we split it?" Jasleen suggested diplomatically. "There's an ice cream shop next door. We can walk over after lunch." Both men agreed, though neither looked entirely satisfied with the compromise. As they left the restaurant, Ray fell into step beside Jasleen, while Cameron walked ahead with the boys. "So that's him," Ray said quietly. "The famous Cameron Hawthorne." "Yes," Jasleen confirmed. "What do you think?" Ray shrugged. "He seems to care about the boys. That's something, at least." "He does," Jasleen admitted. "More than I expected." "And what about you?" Ray asked carefully. "How are you feeling about all this?" Jasleen watched as Cameron pointed out a classic car to the boys, explaining something about the engine that had all 3 triplets fascinated. "Confused," she admitted. "Part of me is still angry at him. For the affair, for the prenup, for choosing his company over our marriage. But another part," she trailed off. "Remembers why you fell in love with him," Ray finished for her. Jasleen looked at him sharply. "No, that's not it. I just see how good he is with the boys. How much they've already connected with him. And I wonder if keeping them apart was the right decision." Ray nodded thoughtfully. "For what it's worth, I think you're handling this whole situation with incredible grace. Most people wouldn't even let their ex meet the kids after what he did." "I'm not doing it for him," Jasleen clarified. "I'm doing it for the boys." At the ice cream shop, chaos ensued as the triplets debated flavors, changed their minds multiple times, and finally settled on their selections: chocolate for Isaiah, strawberry for Noah, and mint chocolate chip for Malachi. "Just like when they were babies," Jasleen remarked to Cameron as they watched the boys eat their ice cream at a nearby table. Isaiah always wanted to be fed first, Noah could never decide what he wanted, and Malachi quietly waited his turn. Cameron smiled sadly. "I wish I'd been there." "You weren't," Jasleen said simply. "But I am now," he replied, "and I want to be part of their lives going forward. Regular visits, school events, holidays, whatever you'll allow. It's not that simple, Cameron." "It can be," he insisted. "I know I hurt you, Jasleen. I know I made terrible mistakes. But these boys deserve to know their father. And I deserve a chance to be that for them." Before Jasleen could respond, Ray approached with napkins for the boys whose ice cream was dripping everywhere. "Everything okay here?" he asked, looking between Jasleen and Cameron. "Fine," Jasleen assured him. "Just discussing arrangements for future visits." Ray nodded, though his expression remained concerned. "The boys are asking about going to the movies next weekend. That animated film they've been talking about for weeks is finally out." "Oh, they'll love that," Jasleen said, grateful for the change of subject. "I'd be happy to take them," Cameron offered. "If that's all right with you, Jasleen." Ray's smile tightened slightly. "Actually, I already promised the boys I'd take them. It's kind of a tradition. We go to the movies once a month." "I see," Cameron said coolly. "Well, perhaps another time." The tension between the two men was palpable. Jasleen stepped in quickly. "Why don't you both take them?" "The boys would love that." Neither man looked pleased with this suggestion, but before they could object, the triplets approached. Ice cream finished and faces sticky. "Can Dad come to the movies with us and Uncle Ray?" Malachi asked, as if reading their thoughts. Jasleen looked at her son in surprise. Malachi, usually so quiet and observant, had pinpointed exactly what they were discussing. "Would that be okay?" she asked, looking from Ray to Cameron. Ray recovered first. "Of course. The more the merrier, right, guys?" He smiled at the boys, who nodded enthusiastically. "I'd be honored," Cameron added, though his eyes remained fixed on Ray rather than the triplets. As they said their goodbyes in the parking lot, the boys hugged Cameron tightly, extracting promises that they would see him soon. Jasleen watched with a mixture of emotions: joy at her son's happiness, fear of what might happen if Cameron let them down, and confusion about her own feelings toward the man who had once broken her heart. "I'll call you about next weekend," she told Cameron as he prepared to leave. He nodded. "Thank you for today, Jasleen. It meant everything to me." As they drove home, Ray following in his truck, Noah asked from the back seat, "Is Dad going to live with us now?" "No, sweetie," Jasleen replied quickly. "Your father has his own place, but he could visit a lot, right?" Isaiah pressed. "We'll see," Jasleen said, her standard response when she didn't have a clear answer. "We're taking things one step at a time." In the rearview mirror, she caught Malachi's thoughtful expression. "What's on your mind, Malachi?" "Uncle Ray and Dad don't like each other," he observed quietly. Jasleen sighed. Nothing escaped Malachi's notice. They just met. They need time to get to know each other. "Like we need time to get to know Dad?" Noah asked. "Exactly," Jasleen confirmed. Later that evening, after the boys were in bed, Jasleen sat on her porch swing with a glass of wine. Ray had stayed to help with bedtime, as he often did, and now joined her outside. "Quite a day," he remarked, sitting beside her. "Quite a day," she agreed. "The boys really took to him." Jasleen nodded. "They did. Faster than I expected." "Blood calls to blood," Ray said philosophically. Then, after a moment of silence, "He's still in love with you, you know." Jasleen nearly choked on her wine. "What? No, he's not. He just wants to know the boys." "Jasleen, I saw how he looked at you. That's not a man who's just interested in co-parenting. You're imagining things." Ray shook his head. "I'm not. But the real question is, how do you feel about him?" Jasleen set her wineglass down firmly. "I don't have feelings for Cameron anymore. He destroyed any chance of that 2 years ago." "Are you sure?" "Because it's okay if you do. People can change, Jas. Maybe he has." "Why are you defending him?" Jasleen asked, surprised. "I thought you'd be the last person to take his side." Ray took her hand gently. "I'm not taking sides. I just want you and the boys to be happy. And if that includes Cameron, well, I care about you too much to stand in the way." Jasleen squeezed his hand gratefully. "You're a good man, Raymond Johnson." "Better than most." "Good enough to kiss?" he asked with a small smile. Jasleen hesitated. They'd grown close over the past 2 years. Ray had been there for her through so much, but she'd always kept a careful distance, focused on the boys and rebuilding her life. "I don't know if I'm ready for that," she admitted. "Especially now with Cameron back in the picture and everything so complicated." Ray nodded, understanding in his eyes. "I can wait. I've been waiting 2 years already. What's a little longer?" He stood to leave, but Jasleen caught his hand. "Ray, I do care about you so much." "You've been our rock." "I know," he assured her. "And I'll still be here, whatever happens with Cameron." After Ray left, Jasleen checked on the boys one last time before bed. They were sleeping peacefully. their new gifts from Cameron carefully arranged on their nightstands. Malachi's drawing from the park was taped to the wall above his bed, the five of them together, like a real family. Her phone buzzed with a text from Cameron. "Thank you for today. The boys are incredible. You've done an amazing job raising them. I know I have no right to ask for anything more, but I hope this is just the beginning." Jasleen stared at the message for a long time before finally replying, "The boys enjoyed meeting you. We can talk about next steps tomorrow." As she crawled into bed, exhausted from the emotional day, Jasleen couldn't help wondering what those next steps might be and where they might lead. For 6 years, she'd been certain that keeping Cameron out of their lives was the right decision. Now she wasn't so sure. One thing was clear, things would never be the same again. For better or worse, Cameron Hawthorne was back in their lives, and only time would tell if he would stay, or if history would repeat itself. Over the next few weeks, Cameron became a regular fixture in the boys' lives. He attended Noah's piano recital, cheered at Malachi's art exhibition at school, and helped Isaiah build a science project. Each visit was carefully supervised by Jasleen, who maintained a polite but distant relationship with her ex-husband. The triplets, however, had no such reservations. They eagerly embraced Cameron, bombarding him with questions and soaking up his attention like parched plants, finally receiving water. "Dad's going to teach me how to play chess," Noah announced one evening as Jasleen tucked him into bed. "That's nice, sweetie," she replied, smoothing his hair back from his forehead, and he said maybe we can visit his office someday. "He has robots there." Jasleen smiled despite herself. "We'll see." In the next bed, Malachi was studying a drawing. "Dad says I could be a real artist someday," he said quietly. "He wants to buy me more art supplies." "You already have plenty of supplies," Jasleen reminded him gently, "but these would be special ones. Professional ones." Isaiah, always the most energetic of the three, bounced on his bed. "And Dad said we might go camping, with tents and fishing and everything." "Boys," Jasleen said firmly, "remember what we talked about? One day at a time, okay? Don't get too far ahead with plans." The triplets exchanged glances, that silent communication that sometimes unnerved her. "You still don't trust Dad, do you?" Noah asked perceptively. Jasleen sighed. How could she explain adult complexities to 6-year-olds? "It's not that simple, sweetie. Your father and I have a complicated history." "Because he hurt you?" Malachi asked, his dark eyes serious. "Yes," Jasleen admitted. "He hurt me very much. But he's sorry now," Isaiah insisted. "He told us so." "Sometimes sorry isn't enough," Jasleen explained gently. "Sometimes trust needs to be rebuilt over time. Like when I broke Noah's keyboard and said sorry, but he didn't believe me until I saved up and bought him a new one." Isaiah asked. Jasleen smiled at his simple but accurate comparison. "Exactly like that." She kissed each boy goodnight, turned out the light, and closed their bedroom door. In the hallway, she leaned against the wall, suddenly exhausted. The past few weeks had been emotionally draining, watching Cameron bond with the boys, keeping her own feelings carefully guarded, navigating the awkward dynamics between Cameron and Ray. Ray had been supportive through it all, though she sensed his discomfort with Cameron's increasing presence in their lives. The movie outing had been particularly tense, with both men competing for the boys' attention while maintaining a veneer of civility. Her phone buzzed with a text from Cameron. "The boys mentioned a field trip to the aquarium next week. Would it be okay if I volunteered as a chaperone? I cleared my schedule just in case." Jasleen hesitated before replying. Cameron had been keeping his promises so far, showing up when he said he would, respecting her boundaries, genuinely engaging with the boys. But she still couldn't fully trust him. "The class already has enough chaperones," she texted back, a small lie to maintain distance. His response came quickly. "I understand. Maybe next time." No argument, no pressure. This new, patient Cameron was still something she was getting used to. Another text arrived. This one from Ray. "Check your front porch. Curious." Jasleen opened her front door to find a bouquet of wildflowers, her favorite, with a simple note. "For everything you do. You're amazing." Ray, she brought the flowers inside, touched by the gesture. Ray had been her rock for 2 years, asking nothing in return except friendship. Now, with his feelings for her in the open, she found herself torn. Ray was safe, reliable, already beloved by the boys. Cameron was their father, making an effort, but with a history of putting himself first. Neither option felt simple or clear. The following Saturday was unseasonably warm for Atlanta in early spring. Cameron had asked for permission to take the boys to Centennial Olympic Park to see the fountains and maybe visit the Children's Museum. After much deliberation, Jasleen had agreed to let him take them alone for the first time. "You have my cell number," she reminded him as the boys excitedly climbed into his car. "Call me for anything at all." "We'll be fine," Cameron assured her. "I've got snacks, water, sunscreen, and first aid supplies. We'll be back by 4, and you'll keep them together at all times?" Jasleen pressed. "The park can get crowded on Saturdays." "I promise," Cameron said solemnly. "I won't let them out of my sight." The boys waved enthusiastically as Cameron drove away. Jasleen stood in the driveway long after the car had disappeared, a knot of anxiety in her stomach. Her mother, who had stopped by to help with some gardening, placed a hand on her shoulder. "They'll be all right. He's their father, after all." "That doesn't mean I trust him," Jasleen replied. "Then why let him take them?" Jasleen sighed. "Because they wanted to go so badly. Because I can't keep them in a bubble forever. Because," she trailed off, "because part of you wants to believe he's changed," Eleanor finished for her. Jasleen didn't argue. Maybe her mother was right. They spent the morning weeding the flower beds in comfortable silence. Around noon, Jasleen's phone rang. Cameron calling. Her heart jumped into her throat as she answered. "Is everything okay?" she asked immediately. "Everything's fine," Cameron assured her. The boys wanted to say hi. He passed the phone to the triplets, who took turns excitedly describing the fountains they'd run through, the giant playground they'd discovered, and the hot dogs Cameron had bought them for lunch. "Dad says we can go to the Children's Museum next." Isaiah's voice came through, breathless with excitement. "That sounds wonderful, sweetie. Are you all listening to your father and staying together?" "Yes, Mom," the three replied in unison. "Good. Have fun, and I'll see you at 4. After hanging up, Jasleen felt some of her tension ease. Maybe this day would go smoothly after all. She and her mother finished the gardening and were preparing lunch when her phone rang again. Cameron's number. A chill ran down her spine. "Hello, Jasleen." Cameron's voice was tight with panic. "I can't find Noah." The world seemed to tilt beneath her feet. "What do you mean you can't find him?" "You promised to watch them." "We were in the museum and it got crowded. I was holding Malachi and Isaiah's hands and Noah was right beside us. I swear he was right there, and then I turned around and he was gone." "Did you alert security?" Jasleen was already grabbing her car keys. "Yes, they're looking for him now." "Jasleen, I'm so sorry." "Save it," she snapped. "I'm on my way." "Where exactly are you?" "Main entrance of the Children's Museum." "I've got security and the police here." "The police?" Jasleen's voice rose with panic. "You called the police?" "Standard procedure for a missing child," Cameron explained, his voice breaking. "Jasleen, I'm so sorry. I'll never forgive myself if—" "Don't," she cut him off. "Just keep looking. I'll be there in 20 minutes. The drive to downtown Atlanta was a blur. Eleanor came with her, trying to offer reassurance, but Jasleen barely heard her. All she could think about was Noah. Quiet, thoughtful Noah who loved music and always had his head in the clouds. Was he scared? Was he hurt? Was he— She couldn't complete that thought. She wouldn't. When they arrived at the museum, police cars were parked outside. Jasleen ran to the entrance where she found Cameron standing with Isaiah and Malachi, his face ashen. A police officer was taking notes while museum security staff coordinated a search. "Mom!" Isaiah and Malachi cried, running to her. She hugged them tightly, then looked at Cameron with fury in her eyes. "How could you let this happen?" "You promised." "I know," he said, his voice hollow. I looked away for just a second. "He was right here, and then—" "Miss Carter." A police officer approached. "We've got teams searching the museum and the surrounding area. We'll find your son." Jasleen nodded mechanically, then knelt to the remaining triplets level. "Boys, when was the last time you saw Noah?" "Think carefully." "He wanted to see the music exhibit," Malachi said quietly. "It's on the 2nd floor." "Did he say he was going there?" Isaiah shook his head. "No, but he was talking about it in the car. He said they have drums you can play and giant piano keys on the floor like in that movie." "Big," Malachi added, referring to the Tom Hanks movie the boys had watched with Ray the previous weekend. Jasleen straightened. "The music exhibit. 2nd floor. Let's go." "Ma'am, we have officers searching—" the policeman began. I know my son, Jasleen interrupted. If he's anywhere in this building, he's there. They hurried to the second floor, Eleanor staying behind with Isaiah and Malachi. The music exhibit was crowded with weekend visitors, children playing instruments, parents taking photos, the cacophony of amateur musicians creating a chaotic soundtrack. Jasleen scanned the room desperately. "Noah? Noah Carter!" No response. Cameron moved methodically through the exhibit, checking behind displays and under tables. "Noah? Son, are you here?" They had nearly given up hope when Jasleen spotted a small figure in the corner of the room, sitting cross-legged, inside a display of hanging chimes, eyes closed as he listened to the sounds around him. "Noah," she cried, rushing toward him. The boy's eyes snapped open. "Mom, what are you doing here?" Jasleen pulled him into a fierce hug, tears streaming down her face. "Do you have any idea how worried we were? We've been looking everywhere for you." Noah looked confused. "But I told Dad I was coming up here." He said, "Okay." Jasleen turned to Cameron, who shook his head vehemently. "He never said anything to me." "Noah, when did you tell me?" "When you were buying tickets. You were talking to the lady, and I said I wanted to see the music room, and you nodded." Understanding dawned on Cameron's face. "Noah, I was nodding at the ticket seller, not at you." "I didn't hear what you said." "Oh," Noah said in a small voice. "I'm sorry." "Am I in trouble?" Jasleen hugged him again. "We're just glad you're safe. But you should never ever go off on your own like that. Do you understand?" Noah nodded solemnly. Cameron approached cautiously, guilt written across his features. "Noah, I'm so sorry. I should have been paying better attention." He knelt beside them, and Noah surprised them both by throwing his arms around Cameron's neck. "It's okay, Dad. I should have waited until you weren't busy." Cameron's eyes met Jasleen's over Noah's head. The relief in his expression was palpable, but so was the shame. They alerted the police that Noah had been found, collected Isaiah and Malachi from Eleanor, and headed home much earlier than planned. The car ride was quiet, the excitement of the day overshadowed by the scare. When they arrived at Jasleen's house, the boys went inside with Eleanor while Cameron and Jasleen remained in the driveway. "Jasleen, I can't begin to tell you how sorry I am," Cameron said, his voice raw with emotion. "You promised to watch them," she replied, her earlier panic giving way to cold anger. "You promised they'd be safe. I know. I failed again." He ran a hand through his hair. "I seem to be making a habit of letting you down. This isn't about me, Cameron. It's about the boys. Do you have any idea what could have happened today? Do you know how many children go missing every year and are never found?" "Of course I do." "I was terrified. When I realized he was gone, he trailed off, unable to finish. That fear you felt. That's what I've lived with every day for 6 years. The fear of not being enough. The fear of failing them. The fear of something happening and being completely alone in handling it." Jasleen's voice cracked. "You didn't fight for me. You didn't fight for them. And now you think money or guilt or appearances can patch up years of silence." Cameron flinched as if she'd struck him. "Is that what you think this is about? Appearances? Guilt? Isn't it?" The great Cameron Hawthorne, successful businessman, suddenly discovers he has 3 sons. "Of course you want to claim them. They're your legacy." "That's not fair, Jasleen. I know I made terrible mistakes, but my feelings for the boys are genuine. I love them." "Love?" Jasleen laughed bitterly. "You don't know the first thing about love, Cameron. Love is sleepless nights walking the floor with 3 colicky babies. Love is working 2 jobs to make rent when your freelance work dries up. Love is putting band-aids on skinned knees and checking for monsters under the bed and answering impossible questions about why the sky is blue and why some kids have daddies and some don't." Tears streamed down her face now. 2 years of bottled emotions finally spilling over. Love is being there, Cameron. Every day. Not just when it's convenient. Not just when there's something in it for you. Cameron stood silent, absorbing her words. Finally, he spoke quietly. "You're right. I haven't earned the right to say I love them. But I want to, Jasleen. I want to learn how to be the father they deserve." "Words," she said dismissively. "You've always been good with words. Then let me show you with actions." He reached into his pocket and pulled out an envelope. "I was going to give you this tomorrow, but now seems like the right time." Jasleen hesitated before taking it. Inside was a legal document, papers transferring ownership of a substantial portion of Hawthorne Innovation stock to a trust for the triplets. "What is this?" she asked. "Their future," Cameron replied. "No strings attached. Whether you let me continue to see them or not, they'll be taken care of." "We don't need your money," Jasleen said automatically, though the amount on the paper made her breath catch. It was more than she could save in a lifetime. "I know you don't. This isn't about need. It's about what's rightfully theirs." Cameron took a deep breath. "There's more. I'm stepping down as CEO of Hawthorne Innovations." Jasleen's head snapped up in surprise. "What? Why?" "Because you were right. I chose my company over my family once before. I won't make that mistake again." He met her gaze steadily. "I'm keeping enough shares to live comfortably, but I'm selling the rest. I want to be available for the boys. School plays, soccer games, homework, weekend trips. All of it." Jasleen stared at him in disbelief. "You're giving up your company? The one you built from nothing? The one that was always more important than our marriage?" "It's just a company, Jasleen. Those boys in there, our sons, they're everything. It took me too long to realize it, but I know it now." Before Jasleen could respond, the front door opened and Noah appeared. "Mom, Dad, are you coming inside? Grandma's making hot chocolate." "We'll be right there, sweetie," Jasleen called. When Noah disappeared back inside, Jasleen turned to Cameron. "I need time to process all this." "Take all the time you need," he replied. "I'm not going anywhere this time." "I promise." The weeks that followed brought significant changes. True to his word, Cameron announced his resignation as CEO of Hawthorne Innovations, sending shockwaves through Atlanta's business community. Speculation ran wild. Health problems, scandal, a hostile takeover. But Cameron refused all interviews, releasing only a brief statement about focusing on personal matters. He bought a modest house just 10 minutes from Jasleen's, furnished it simply, but with 3 bedrooms for the boys to stay over eventually. He began attending parenting classes and reading books on raising boys. Most importantly, he showed up consistently, reliably, without fail, for every commitment he made to the triplets. Ray, meanwhile, maintained his presence in their lives, though with a new understanding between him and Jasleen. "I see the way you look at him sometimes," Ray said one evening as they sat on her porch swing after the boys were in bed. "Who?" Jasleen asked, though she knew exactly who he meant, Cameron. "There's history there." "Complicated history," Jasleen sighed. "Ray, It's okay," he interrupted gently. "I told you before, I care about you too much to stand in the way of what might make you happy." "I don't know what would make me happy anymore," she admitted. 2 months ago, my life felt settled. Challenging, but settled. Now everything's up in the air." Ray took her hand. "Whatever happens, I'm here. As your friend, if nothing else." Tears filled Jasleen's eyes. "You deserve so much more than friendship, Ray." "Maybe," he agreed with a sad smile. "But we don't always get what we deserve in this life. Sometimes we get what we need instead." He kissed her cheek softly before leaving, both of them knowing something had shifted between them. The triplets, meanwhile, flourished with Cameron's involvement in their lives. Isaiah's confidence grew with his father's encouragement in sports. Malachi's artistic talents blossomed under Cameron's enthusiastic support. Noah's musical abilities developed as Cameron arranged for proper piano lessons. One evening, as Jasleen watched Cameron teaching the boys how to make his grandmother's famous cornbread in her kitchen, she found herself smiling at the scene. The Cameron she'd married had never cooked, had barely known his way around a kitchen. This new version, patient, flour-dusted, laughing as Isaiah spilled milk on the counter, was someone she hardly recognized. "Mom, look," Noah called. "Dad's letting us mix it ourselves." "I can see that," she replied, noting the mess spreading across her previously clean kitchen. "You're all doing a great job." Cameron glanced up, catching her smile. "We'll clean up, I promise." "You'd better," she warned, but there was no heat in her words. Later, after the cornbread was baked, eaten, and praised, and the kitchen restored to order, Cameron helped get the boys ready for bed while Jasleen finished some work emails. "Dad, will you read us a story?" Malachi asked as Cameron tucked him in. "Of course," Cameron agreed, selecting a book from their shelf. "Just one, though. It's already past your bedtime." Jasleen paused outside the bedroom door, listening as Cameron read, different voices for different characters, sound effects that made the boys giggle, pauses for questions and comments. A far cry from the man who had once been too busy to make it home for dinner, let alone bedtime stories. When he emerged from the room, gently closing the door behind him, he found Jasleen waiting in the hallway. "You're good with them," she said quietly. "They make it easy," he replied. "They're amazing kids, Jasleen. You did that. You raised them to be kind, curious, intelligent boys. They get a lot from you too, you know. Not just their looks. Isaiah has your determination. Malachi has your creativity. Noah has your analytical mind." Cameron smiled sadly. "Nature finds a way even when nurture is absent." "You're not absent anymore," Jasleen pointed out. "No," he agreed. "And I never will be again." He hesitated. "I should get going. It's getting late." As he gathered his jacket, a sudden thunderstorm broke outside, lightning illuminating the living room, thunder rattling the windows. "You should wait it out," Jasleen suggested. "The boys hate storms. If the thunder wakes them—" "I'll stay until it passes," Cameron agreed, settling on the couch. Jasleen brought him a cup of coffee and sat in the armchair across from him. For a few minutes they listened to the rain in comfortable silence. "I never thanked you," Jasleen said finally. "For what?" "For not fighting me on the custody arrangement. For respecting my boundaries. For not using your money and influence to try to take the boys from me." Cameron looked genuinely shocked. "I would never do that. The boys need their mother. You're the center of their world." "Not anymore," Jasleen said with a small smile. "Now they have their father too. Dad this and dad that all day long. They still need you more. Always will." Another silence fell between them, broken only by the storm outside. "Can I ask you something?" Cameron said finally. "Something I've been wondering since I found out about the boys." Jasleen nodded. "Why didn't you tell me you were pregnant? Even after you left. Why keep it a secret?" Jasleen considered the question carefully before answering. "At first it was anger. I'd just discovered your affair. Found that prenup that protected everything you had while leaving me with nothing. I felt betrayed. Disposable." She took a deep breath. "Then when I found out I was pregnant, it was fear. Fear that you'd use your money and connections to take my babies from me. Fear that you'd see them as heirs to your empire rather than children to love. I would never—" "You might have," Jasleen interrupted gently. "The Cameron I knew then might have. He was ambitious, ruthless in business. Why would fatherhood be any different?" Cameron couldn't argue with her assessment of his former self. "And later? When they were born? Pride, I suppose. I'd done it on my own through a difficult pregnancy and birth. I was managing, barely sometimes, but managing. I didn't want to give you the opportunity to swoop in like a hero when I'd been doing all the hard work." She looked away. "And maybe, just maybe, a small part of me was afraid that if you knew about them, you'd want me back too. Not for love, but for appearances, for convenience. And I couldn't bear that. I never stopped loving you, Jasleen," Cameron said quietly. She met his gaze. "You had a funny way of showing it. I know. I was young and stupid, and thought success meant working 80-hour weeks and attending power lunches. I thought I could compartmentalize. Marriage in one box, career in another, never the two shall meet." He shook his head. "I lost sight of what really mattered. By the time I realized my mistake, you were gone." "And the affair?" Jasleen asked, the question that had haunted her for years. Cameron's face filled with shame. "The biggest mistake of my life. It didn't mean anything. A moment of weakness at a conference when I was drunk and feeling invincible." He met her eyes directly. "That's not an excuse. There is no excuse. But I want you to know it was never about not loving you. It was about me being selfish and foolish and not appreciating what I had." Jasleen nodded, surprised to find that the pain of that betrayal had dulled over time. "Thank you for being honest." The storm outside began to ease, the thunder moving into the distance. "I should go," Cameron said, standing up. "The boys have soccer practice tomorrow morning, right? I'll pick them up at 9. "They'd like that," Jasleen replied, walking him to the door. At the threshold, Cameron turned back. "Jasleen, I know I have no right to ask this, but is there any chance someday that you might be able to forgive me? Not for me, but for your own peace." Jasleen surprised herself with her answer. "I think I already have, Cameron. Forgiven you, I mean. Seeing you with the boys, the way you've changed, the choices you've made. It's helped me let go of a lot of anger." Hope flickered in his eyes. "And trust? Is there any chance of that?" "Trust takes longer," she said honestly. "But you're making progress." He nodded, accepting her answer. "That's all I can ask for. Good night, Jasleen." Good night, Cameron. 2 months later, Jasleen found herself once again at Le Jardin, the restaurant where Cameron had first discovered the triplets. This time she was alone, meeting with a potential client who wanted to redesign his office space. The meeting went well, ending with a signed contract and a promising new business relationship. As Jasleen gathered her portfolio, she noticed the rain that had begun falling outside. She'd walked to the restaurant from her nearby appointment and now faced a wet journey back to her car. She sighed, preparing to make a dash for it, when her phone buzzed with a text from Cameron. Look outside. Curious, she approached the restaurant's entrance. There on the sidewalk stood Cameron, holding 3 small umbrellas, red, blue, and green, the boys' favorite colors. She stepped outside under the awning. What are you doing here? I was meeting with my lawyer about finalizing the trust for the boys. Saw your car down the block and remembered you had a meeting here. He held out the umbrellas. Thought you might need one of these? How thoughtful, she said, genuinely touched by the gesture. But why 3? 1 for each of our sons, he explained with a smile. I keep them in my car now. Always prepared for anything. Jasleen felt something shift inside her, a wall crumbling, a door opening. This man before her, holding 3 little umbrellas in the rain, was so different from the ambitious, self-centered person she'd left 2 years ago. Share mine? Cameron offered, opening the largest umbrella. I'll walk you to your car. Jasleen hesitated only briefly before stepping under the umbrella with him. They walked slowly through the rain, close but not touching, the silence between them comfortable rather than strained. The boys are excited about spending the weekend at your place, she said as they neared her car. Their first overnight. I've got everything ready. Bunk beds, new pajamas, a stack of books, and ingredients for pancakes in the morning. He grinned. And yes, I know, no sugar after 7, teeth brushed for a full 2 minutes, and no scary stories before bed. Jasleen smiled. Are you learning? I had a good teacher. They reached her car and Cameron held the umbrella over her as she unlocked the door. Before getting in, she turned to face him. You really have changed, haven't you? I had to, he replied simply. The stakes are too high now. Jasleen studied his face, the face she'd once loved, then hated, and now... What? She wasn't sure what she felt anymore, only that it was no longer the burning anger of betrayal. Cameron, she said carefully, I don't know what the future holds for us. I don't know if we can ever be what we were. I don't want what we were, he interrupted gently. What we were didn't work. I want something new, something honest and real, something built on respect and trust. That takes time, she reminded him. I have time, he assured her. All the time in the world, and I'm not going anywhere. Rain pattered on the umbrella above them, creating a private world in the midst of the busy street. Jasleen found herself taking a small step closer to him. The boys have their piano recital next month, she said. I know. It's marked on my calendar in red. Wouldn't miss it for the world. I was thinking maybe we could all go to dinner afterward. To celebrate. The 5 of us. Cameron's eyes widened slightly. The 5 of us? You mean you, me, and the boys? A family dinner. Jasleen took a deep breath. A small step. I'd like that, Cameron said softly. Very much. Impulsively, Jasleen reached up and kissed his cheek. Thank you for the umbrella. She got into her car before he could respond, but through the window she saw his expression, not smiling, not frowning, just open with possibility, much like her own heart. As she drove away, Jasleen reflected on the journey that had brought them here. 2 years ago, she had walked away from Cameron, determined to build a life without him. Now, against all odds, he was back in their lives, changed, humbled, committed to being the father her sons deserved, and perhaps, someday, the man she deserved too. At home, she found Ray fixing the boys' treehouse in the backyard. The triplets were helping, which meant handing him tools and asking endless questions about what he was doing. Uncle Ray, look how high I can climb. Isaiah called from a branch. Careful, buddy, Ray warned. That branch isn't part of the treehouse yet. Jasleen watched from below, smiling at the scene. When Ray spotted her, he climbed down to greet her. How was your meeting? He asked. Good, I got the contract. She hesitated. I saw Cameron afterward. Ray nodded, his expression unreadable. I figured you two would be talking more with the boys staying at his place this weekend. Ray, It's okay, Jazz, he interrupted gently. I told you before, I want you to be happy. And the boys, they need their father. They need you too, she said firmly. You've been there for us in ways I can never repay. Ray smiled, though there was a hint of sadness in his eyes. Some people come into our lives to stay. Others come to teach us something, and then move on. Whatever happens with you and Cameron, I'll always be here for you and the boys, in whatever capacity you need. Jasleen hugged him, grateful beyond words for his friendship and understanding. Thank you. That evening, as Jasleen helped the boys pack overnight bags for their weekend with Cameron, she felt a strange sense of peace. The past 2 years had been a journey of independence and strength. The past 2 months had been a lesson in forgiveness and possibility. Whatever the future held, whether friendship or something more with Cameron, whether continued connection or gentle distance from Ray, she knew one thing for certain: her sons would be loved. By her, by their father, by the people who had chosen to be part of their lives, and in the end, that was all that really mattered. "Mom," Malachi said as she zipped his bag, "are you sad we're going to Dad's?" "No, sweetie," she assured him. "I'm happy you're spending time with your father, but you'll be all alone," Noah pointed out with concern. Jasleen smiled and gathered all 3 boys into a hug. "I'm never alone. I have you 3 in my heart all the time. And when we get back, can we all do something together?" Isaiah asked. "You and me and Noah and Malachi and Dad?" Jasleen hesitated only briefly before answering, "Yes, I think we can arrange that." As she tucked them into bed that night, Jasleen thought about how life had come full circle. 2 years ago, she had walked away from Cameron, determined to protect her unborn children from disappointment and pain. Now she was cautiously opening the door to a new kind of family, not the traditional one she had once dreamed of, but something potentially stronger, built on hard-won wisdom and deliberate choice. The next day, when Cameron arrived to pick up the boys, she handed him their bags with none of the anxiety that would have plagued her a few months ago. "Call me if you need anything," she said. "They like a story before bed and—" "Jasleen," Cameron interrupted with a gentle smile, "we'll be fine. I've been taking notes for months, remember?" She nodded, relieved and somehow proud of how far they'd come. "I'll bring them back Sunday afternoon," he promised. "Maybe we could all have dinner together before I go." "I'd like that," Jasleen replied, surprising herself with how much she meant it. As she watched them drive away, the 3 excited boys waving frantically from the back seat, Cameron carefully checking his mirrors before pulling into traffic, Jasleen felt something she hadn't expected: hope. Not hope for a fairy tale ending or a perfect reconciliation, but hope for something real and lasting. Something built on truth rather than illusion, on commitment rather than convenience, on love that had been tested by fire and emerged stronger. Rain began to fall again as she stood in the driveway. But for the first time in a long time, Jasleen didn't mind getting a little wet. After all, sometimes you had to weather the storm to see the rainbow on the other side. And this particular storm, the one that had begun 2 years ago when she walked away from Cameron, the one that had intensified when he discovered their sons, was finally beginning to clear. Whatever came next, they would face it together. Not as the couple they once were, but as the parents they had become. And maybe, just maybe, as something new, something neither of them could have imagined when their paths crossed again in that restaurant on a rainy Friday evening. Time would tell. And for once, Jasleen was content to wait and see what it might bring.